Welcome. Let's try it in different, tones, right? To the Purple Positivity Podcast for, it's not March anymore, it's April. Ugh. April the 6th, 2018. I am your host, the amazingly adorable and very easily stymied by the concept of time, Rebecca Thistle. Podcasting to you live-ish from my kitchen/dining room table in my apartment, which I call Jeffrey Thistlework. Yes, I forgot it was Friday. I overslept this morning, and I just completely forgot that it was Friday. Oh, crap, I have to do a podcast. What am I going to talk about? Except I know what I'm going to talk about. So, as I am fond of saying, if this were a professional podcast, and if I were an audio editing wizard, I would have a clip of this ready to go and play for you people. But this isn't. I'm not. I don't. So let's do this. So, after Wednesday's show, I felt a real sense of, peace. You know, on the Purple Lit Nerd podcast, I've talked a few times about this idea of freedom through speech, and you see it pop up in literature, particularly more modern literature. This idea of telling your personal truth is a very liberating experience, and so I was having that experience after Wednesday's show. Wow, I talked about how fairy tales have fucked up my life and how I get frustrated over fairy tales and frustrated with myself and all that stuff. And I felt lighter for saying it. And so I didn't know what I was going to talk about on this show. And then the universe has ways of making you talk or making you think or making you pause, whatever. Because yesterday at work, I was listening to music, and this song came up on my playlist by MC Lars called Dragon Blood, and now you know where the title comes from. It is a song that is actually about Daenerys Targaryen from Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire, and I remember when it came out, or when I first heard it anyways, I was living with a friend of mine out in this little, tiny town, almost in the middle of nowhere, called Clyde. And I was waiting for bureaucracy to catch up with my life. I was going through court battles with my son's father. Yeah. This guy, JC, I talked about him on Wednesday's show. JC, after I left, Child Protective Services told him how he could visit his son, and he never arranged it, and then walked into court 2 months later and said, Becca is an unfit parent and I want custody of my child. And they said, okay, get a lawyer. So that didn't go well. But I still had to keep going back to court to check in on the situation, because that's what you do. And it was a very difficult experience for me. Because this was a man who had hit me. And he was bringing his girlfriend, who didn't see a problem with telling me that no man would ever want me because I feel things. Who didn't see a problem with telling me that I wasn't a good enough parent because I feel things. Like, I mean, it was ridiculous. And so it was a very difficult time for me to have to keep going back to freaking court and face these people. I mean, they kept it, bless them, the Attorney General's office. They kept our face-to-face interactions as minimal as possible, knowing the situation. But it was still very difficult for me. And then this song comes out about Daenerys Targaryen. Now, I'd never watched Game of Thrones. Never. I'd never read any of the books. I'd never watched the show. I knew about it, sort of, but I didn't know anything about it. So this was my first introduction to that whole thing. This song, and what the chorus says is, I got dragon blood, what you want to do, son? I got dragon blood, what you want to do? I got dragon blood, what you want to do, son? Because I'm always going hard with my Dothraki crew. And, you know, that was all that, and so basically all I knew after hearing this song was it was about a girl/woman who had been exploited and abused and oppressed, who becomes the mother of dragons, you know, and basically takes control of her life and does some pretty awesome things. And I went, fuck, if she can do that, I can do that. And so that there was something about hearing that in my head whenever I had to go to court after the song came out, or after I heard the song. Whenever I had to go to court, I'd hear that in my head, and suddenly my posture straightened, and I wasn't scared. So of course I had to read the book. You know, I had to start the book series, and I'll be honest, it took me 2 years and 10 attempts to get through that series, because it's not because it's badly written. I mean, this is something that would probably fit better on the Lit Nerd podcast. But it's not a badly written book. It's not a horrible story. It is just the narration is wonderful. It's great. It's just hard for me to focus on. And that's nothing to do with George R.R. Martin. That's nothing to do with anything other than Becca's weird. And it took me 2 years to figure out that as long as I am fidgeting with my hands, I can focus better on what I'm actually hearing. And so assembling pens is the perfect activity for listening to these books. And getting through them. And I'm still having a hard time. Like I think I've got 7 hours left in the third book, A Storm of Swords. And I have A Feast of Crows and Dance with Dragons. I have them ready to listen. I just somewhere towards the end of Storm of Swords, I just went, I can't handle this right now. And so now I've sort of stopped that. Anyways, but one of the things that stood out about Daenerys to me every single time I tried to listen to it over the intervening years and ultimately once I finished it, is her little mantra that she says to herself is, I am the blood of the dragon and the dragon is never afraid. And I went, yeah. And, you know, and it was, you know, and you actually see that kind of paralleled in Arya, who, you know, her house sigil is the dire wolf, and she says, I should be a wolf. I am a wolf, or, you know, she says stuff like that. I like Arya, I just don't pay as much attention as I do with Daenerys, obviously. So the reason that I decided to talk about this song and its impact on my life on this show is because I'm still dealing with Child Protective Services. I feel so helpless in that situation. I feel so helpless, and I feel scared. And I mean, I'm coming up on having to do another compliance hearing, and all I can think is, I don't understand what this is all for. I mean, because, okay, they wanted me to work what they call family-based safety services, which is basically like extended long-term CPS, and they wanted me to go to counseling, which I was already doing. They wanted me on medication, which I was on. They wanted me to do a psychological evaluation, which I did. They wanted me to get out of the house that I was living in, which I did. They wanted me to get my home health services back, which I did. And yet somehow I don't have my kid. And they want me to do parenting classes, but my caseworker said, I'm trying to find someone for you to come out to your house. And so I'm given to understand that, okay, I don't have to do anything because you're going to take care of it. And here we are, maybe a week or so away from a compliance hearing, and she hasn't contacted me at all. She has not contacted me in any way. She has not stopped by. And I'm just sitting here going, what do I do? What do I zarking do? And if I don't do anything, it's on me, even though they said they would do it. And I feel so helpless, and I feel scared. But then I heard that song yesterday and it come up in my playlist, and I'm just like, you know what? I've been through worse. Somebody has tried to take my kid away before, and they failed. And, oh Lord, I try so hard not to cry on this show. I'm gonna take a pause here. But they've tried to take my kid. Someone's tried to take my kid away. I mean, granted, JC probably had more entitlement to him than do my parents or anybody else. But he failed. And I think one of my favorite lines in the song, other than the chorus, is there's a line in there where he goes, "These creatures on my shoulders, well, I think you should be fearing them." And I'm like, yes! So I think what I'm going to start doing is I need to get that song, like, stuck in my head. That's going to be my new mantra. I got dragon blood. What you want to do, son? And just pretend like I've got dragons on my shoulders, and I'm the mother of dragons. Yeah, it's really funny because for the past 2 years, what I wanted more than anything was to be able to get a Daenerys Targaryen costume and a long purple wig, and I'd be like, I'm the purple mother of dragons. Dress my son up like a dragon. When I had my dog Zelda, maybe I was